What's going on, the homies? Jolt here from TheTokenMinorities, and I am back with the Week 5 battle of the last battle circuit. This week we are taking on Arashi, the coach of the Groningen Noctowls, I believe. Make sure to go check him out. He'll be linked down in the description below, along with all of the other coaches that are playing in the LBC this season. Now, last week we had a heck of a game against Skyrander. Make sure to check out that game if you haven't already. That one seriously came down to the wire, and going to kind of spoil the result here soon. So if you haven't already seen that game, make sure to go back and take a look at that. It'll be in the same playlist as this video, and if I remember, I'll try to put it in the description below. So yeah, last week we ended up winning a heck of a game. Came down to like literally the last play, came down to a couple HP on Road and Watch to be able to pull off the win last week. So we are sitting at 3-1 for our record thus far in the season, which is not too bad. It actually puts us in a tie for first place, and if we're able to win out the rest of our games, we should be able to, I believe, guaranteed secure a first or second seed in the playoffs, which would be a first round bye. I believe is the top 6 that are making playoffs in this league. So really want to try to win out the rest of our games here to secure that bye and basically make it so I don't have to build one extra team for this season. So anyways, definitely trying to win this game. Now I will say that I mentioned this in our fan server, which if you're not in the TTM fan server, make sure to go join that as well if you want to hang out with me and Sticks and Danza and all the cool people. It's linked down in the description below, and if it's not, then pester me in the comments and I'll make sure to add it to the description, but hopefully I remember to do that. But anyways, join us over there if you want to chat with us. But even so, for those of you who are in there, you know that I mentioned that I'm going to be doing my team builders a little bit differently for the remainder of the regular season of this league, and that is mostly due to the fact that I feel like my builds are getting a little bit repetitive just with how I want to approach my regular season games. I could branch out with this team, but I feel like it's not really worth it to branch out in the regular season when I want to save some of that more creative stuff for playoffs. And you know, there might be one or two specific instances here as the season concludes where I want to branch out and bring a more creative team, and if that's the case, I might do an individual team builder for that particular team. But you know, for battles like this one, this is a perfect example of a game where the team is super similar to some of the other ones that I brought earlier on in the season. I just didn't really think it made the most sense to, you know, make a full 20-minute team builder for something that you kind of already seen already. So that's why you didn't see an individual team builder this week, and that will be the most likely reason why in future weeks you might not see an individual team builder. But with all that said, in playoffs, 100% you're going to be getting individual team builders plus the battle upload, of course, assuming that we're able to make it to playoffs. So anyway, just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a heads up on that. But with that said, going to kind of loop the team builder with the battle here. Not really. I'm just going to go over the team at team preview. But anyways, my man Arashi is rocking the Tapu, Finny, Victini, Zapdos, Ferrothorn, Heracross, Honchkrow, Gigalith, Torkoal, Macargo, Stoutland, and the Mega Steelix as his full roster of mons that he can use. So he has a lot of pretty interesting threats on his team, a lot of really underrated threats, I guess, as well. A lot of low-tier threats, honestly. A lot of fire Pokemon. He has Macargo, Torkoal, and the Victini, which is kind of interesting. And as you can see in front of you, he actually ended up bringing all 3 of those here to this game. So that's going to be a difficult pairing to switch into, as most teams aren't really prepared to take hits from 3 fire types. Even 2 is sometimes a struggle for teams to switch into. It's like overload offense. That's something I like running every now and then. And yeah, that's kind of what it looks like Arashi decided to bring here in this matchup against me. So he brought a lot of threats. He brought the Honchkrow, the Zapdos, and the Heracross as well. All 3 of those Pokemon, all 6 of his Pokemon, honestly, are pretty threatening. Maybe minus the Macargo, but anyways, the team that I am bringing for this game is the Road and Watch, Mew, Cobalion, Zygarde 50, Mega Beedrill, and the Togekiss. I'm really packing on the physically defensive bulk, as a lot of his team, as you might have noticed, is it prefers to use physically offensive moves. Even with the Pokemon that he brought, half of his team, really the strongest half of his team, the Heracross, the Victini, and the Honchkrow all prefer physical moves in general, and Zapdos is pretty threatening from the special side as well if he's a more offensive set, but I definitely tailored my EVs more toward taking those physical hits in this matchup, and I will put a paste to the team down in the description below, since I'm not, going through all of the EVs and movesets and all that on my mons here in this video. So if you're interested in all of those details, that should be linked down in the description below as well. But just to very briefly go over the squad, I am bringing a pretty straightforward Rotom Wash set. I believe it is just Volt Switch, Hydro Pump, Toxic, and Pain Split, just meant to pivot around his team. He really doesn't appreciate Rotom Wash, as you can see from the Pokemon that he has at Team Preview here. That set can put in an enormous amount of work, and maybe I can even get a Toxic off on the Zapdos. Preferably don't want to get a Toxic off on the Heracross on the off chance that it is a Guts variant, but that's the Rotom Wash, pretty physically defensive. The Mew is a Bulk Up variant with Earthquake, I believe Fire Punch, and Roost. This was a potential win con in this game, kind of depending on what he brought. I don't really think it's going to be an amazing win con versus this particular team. He didn't really bring the stuff that I felt like I could really set up on. So he's got a lot of stuff that can be annoying to the Mew, but Mew can still take hits from pretty much all of his team. It's going to take any 2 hits from Zapdos, which is looking like it's going to be its main role here in this game, to stall out the Zapdos once I can get a Toxic off on it with my Rotom Wash or my Togekiss, which is also carrying Toxic here in this game. So that's the Mew set. Again, pretty bulky. I think I went with like max HP and some speed investment and then some attack investment on this, just because his natural bulk was good enough to take any 2 hits from most of his team. Then he has the I have the Cobalion rather, which is a Rocky MZ variant with the Stone Edge Close Combat, Volt Switch, and Stealth Rock. Really good against his team as a Stealth Rocker, and just looking at what he brought, 5 of his 6 members are weak to Stealth Rock, so you better bet I'm prioritizing Stealth Rock in this game for sure. Just so good against the Pokemon that he brought. And that also means that Z Stone Edge coming from this thing is basically a guaranteed kill as well. So that's pretty awesome. Cobalion's looking like he can put in a lot of work here in this game here for sure. Then Zygarde 50, probably the primary win con in this game. It is a Dragon Dance Curse Substitute 1000 Arrows variant with a lot of special defense investment, which pretty much sets up on the vast majority of his team. Really the only exception being the Zapdos, and if I can get some chip damage off on that, maybe Rocks on the field and a Toxic on the Zapdos, is not really going to be able to deal with a +1 Zygarde either. So Zygarde absolutely looking like the win con in this game. Mega Beedrill, really straightforward. It is a defogging Mega Beedrill, just because I was a little bit concerned about Spike Stack, I believe, on his team, if I remember correctly, and it might have actually just been the fact that I had Mega Beedrill and Togekiss and I wanted to have Defog in some capacity on the team. But even so, I did bring the Mega Beedrill, otherwise pretty straightforward set, packing the Drill Run in case he brought the Mega Steelix, also nice for the fire types on his team. Then I have U-Turn and Poison Jab. And then the Togekiss, physically defensive, almost fully physically defensive, Air Slash, Flamethrower, Toxic, and Roost. Pretty much annoys his entire team, so that's pretty cool too. But with that said, like I said, I'm trying to win this game with the Zygarde. We'll go ahead and try to dive on into this game here, as we're going to see the challenge come out here from Arashi, so good luck to him, of course. And I'm going to lead off with the Rotom Wash, which is overall going to be my my safest lead here on my team. Shout out to Aaron2420 / I believe Leo, who recorded my game for me, and to Styx for genning my team for me this week as well. So anyway, going to lead up with the Rotom Wash. Now I'm just going to go straight into my Togekiss. I'm not going to let this thing take the potential Bullet Seed or the potential Close Combat or Mega Horn knockoff. I really didn't want my Rotom Wash to take damage from the Heracross if I could avoid it, just because Rotom is so good against the rest of his team, like switching into the fire attacks and whatnot. So Togekiss was a pretty safe switch in here to the Bullet Seed, and as you can see, it does, even with 4 hits, it does a net of probably like 10 HP of damage to my Togekiss. Okay, 20 HP, sorry. It does very little damage. So Togekiss is going to be able to make a bit of an aggressive read here and just go straight for the Toxic, expecting him to go into into either Macargo or into the Zapdos, as I didn't think there was really any reason for the Heracross to try to stay in there. Even if he wasn't Choice Scarfed, it just doesn't make much sense for Heracross to try to stay in against a near full health Togekiss. So I do go for the Toxic play. I land it on something switching in. I didn't really hit what I wanted to hit. I want to hit the Zapdos especially, because if I can have Toxic on Zapdos, I know my Mew can beat it 1v1 much easier. So that's really going to be something I'm trying to accomplish here with this game. But now they got the Torkoal in, I do just go for the Air Slash, thinking, you know, I have a 60% chance to flinch, and he usually doesn't have very good special defense. So could have chipped him down pretty fast there with the combination of flinches and the Toxic. But I do miss my first Air Slash, which I guess that's what I get for going for a flinch. But anyway, now I'm just going to go for a Toxic, expecting him to go into Zapdos now, although he actually decides to go into the Macargo, which is also fine. I don't mind getting a Toxic on this because I feel like I can pretty much do the same thing. I can Roost all this. Even if he's packing the rock coverage, he's always going to be slower than me, and that would basically mean that I should be able to always beat this thing 1v1. There's really nothing that Macargo should be able to do to be able to 1v1 my Togekiss unless it gets like a bunch of Ancient Power boost or something. So I do just go for the Air Slash, and fortunately I do get the flinch this time around, which makes up for entirely missing my Air Slash before, in my opinion. But I'm going to go for another Air Slash here, and we'll see if I can get a little bit lucky, and unfortunately I cannot. In fact, just the opposite, as he goes for the Ancient Power, and it does so much damage. I'm thinking, what the heck, is this thing Specs? But no, it's just a critical hit, and Togekiss takes half from this, which is pretty terrifying. But still, I am faster than this. I can still go for the Roost pretty safely against this thing, and he really doesn't have too many options he can go for. I kind of figured he'd try to go into the Zapdos here on this turn, but regardless, Roost was my best play, and if he did go Zapdos, there was a chance I could have left in Togekiss to get the Toxic off, but I still had my Mew at full health and would always be able to take 2 hits from Zapdos unless it's like Choice Specs. So I felt pretty good about trying to make that play. And here I'm going to go for the Roost, expecting the Honchkrow to potentially be faster than me, as I'm not packing really any speed investment on this Togekiss, and if Honchkrow was carrying even a little bit of speed, maybe to outpace like a modest Togekiss or something like that and break through it a little bit better, then he should have been able to outspeed me. But I do outspeed him, which, you know, it's kind of a wasted turn for me, but still, he's just going to go straight for his Z move, and it's going to do an absolute 0 to Togekiss. Okay, Togekiss absolutely chews that Z Brave Bird, which is kind of funny. That I expected it to do a lot more, so I don't think he was like full attack investment on the Honchkrow, or maybe Togekiss is just that fat. I'm not sure, but I am just going to go straight for the Roost now, expecting him to probably pull a switch or to just start clicking Brave Bird in kind of like a panic mode, noticing that he's not really breaking Togekiss very well. And, you know, fortunately for me, he does actually opt to go for that Brave Bird play, which that's pretty nice. It gets me a little bit of chip damage off on the Honchkrow, which might make it so that it's in range of something else on my team later on. But anyways, now that I believe now I'm just going to go straight for a Toxic, expecting him to go into the Zapdos finally, because I know he wanted to go into Zapdos. It was going to happen eventually. Finally, we're able to catch him with the Toxic on this, meaning that my Mew should always be able to now 1v1 this set, which is phenomenal for the game now. So now, because he has the Zapdos and it is Toxic, I do feel safe about going into my Mew, so I believe that's the play I'm going to make on this turn. Even if he tries to go for like a Volt Switch or a Discharge or a Thunderbolt on this turn, I should be able to take it pretty well, and there's always a good chance he could go for something like a Hidden Power Ice, trying to catch my Zygarde on the switch in, and that's exactly what he does, also revealing the Life Orb, which is very good information to have. And actually, it's really nice for me that he is Life Orb, because that means he'll be worn down into range of my Zygarde's 1,000 Arrows a little bit more quickly. It also probably means he has a little bit less bulk, so all very good information to have here at this point in the game. But here I'm just going to go straight for the Roost, expecting him to go for a Thunderbolt probably, or maybe a Toxic of his own. And in either case, I'll take the chip damage that I'll get off of that turns. He does just go for a slower Volt Switch, and then goes into his Honchkrow, which makes a lot of sense here. Honchkrow is going to be pretty solid against the Mew, as it should have the Dark super effective coverage for it, but I do have a Cobalion in the back, and I already said at Team Preview how big of a threat Cobalion is to his his team. I'm just going to go straight into it now. There's nothing he can go for that can knock this out. Even if he has the Heat Wave, he's already revealed to not be Life Orb on this set, so I know I can take that hit too. And he does just go for the Night Slash. It gets me that nice, juicy, justified boost, which is amazing. And now I'm just going to go straight for the Stealth Rock. No matter what he goes into, it's not going to appreciate a hit from Cobalion, so I figured he might try to stay in and sack, or he might try to go into something like the Torkoal Hard, which would just mean I can follow it up with a Z Stone Edge after the fact, which would be just as good for me. But because he goes into the Torkoal now a turn later, he actually should be in range of a regular Stone Edge potentially, as I do have that +1 boost in my attack. If I can land the Stone Edge, and I do, the Torkoal may just go down here, and it does. So Torkoal is going to drop, but he was able to set the Drought once again for some of his more threatening fire types, like the Victini, but instead he goes into the Magcargo. So now I'm like, what the heck is this thing gonna do? I don't fear this. That should just be able to knock this thing out with a Volt Switch, but no! It lives on like 1 HP, and that was really frustrating. I thought that was like a guaranteed knockout, but either Magcargo is like fatter on the special defensive side than I realized, or that was a really low roll, because I thought that was guaranteed. But anyway, because he did live, I'm going to be forced to pretty much sack something off or let something take a bunch of damage from a fire move. And Mew really looked like the most expendable member of the team, especially now that I have the Stealth Rock on the field, I have the Toxic on the Zapdos. It's going to wear itself down enough to where my offense should be able to knock out the Zapdos later on. I don't really need to have this more defensive check to it here in this game. So Mew is the sack of choices. Now he's going to go into his Victini. This gives me an opportunity to maybe scout if this thing is Choice Scarfed, or at least I can see what type of Victini it is. He does reveal the U-turn, which tells me it's probably a Choice Scarfed Victini. It could be Choice Banded, but just based upon his team composition, I think Choice Scarf is the most likely. So that's my assumption here at this point in the game, is now he's going to pull the switch into his Heracross, which is fair enough. What I'm going to do is just go into my Mega Beedrill, and if this thing does turn out to be a Choice Scarf variant, what it basically means is that I'll be able to set up with Zygarde pretty much for free on this, as he's locked to go. He's forced to go for either an Earthquake or Stone Edge to knock out my Mega Beedrill, and if he goes for either of those two moves, that's free setup fodder for Zygarde, and Zygarde at +1 pretty much wins the game at this point already. So I would be a-okay with that sequence of plays, but he does actually survive the Poison Jab as I outspeed him, and I poison him with the Poison Jab, which is it's interesting because I actually would have rather that didn't happen. I would have much rather gotten my Dragon Dances off, or like a Coil and a Dragon Dance, something like that, against the Heracross here, as he really didn't have any counterplay to it at this point in the game. But unfortunately, Beedrill does get the Poison Jab poison, and we're going to double down here on this turn, which it's not, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it just kind of messed with how I wanted to play the end game here. But anyways, I'm just going to go into my Rotom Wash now, as it's good against everything that he has left on his team. So I do just go for the relatively safe Hydro Pump. It is in the sun, so it's not going to do too much damage, and maybe in hindsight it should have gone for a Volt Switch on this turn, but it's not a huge deal either way. I just wanted to get as much damage as possible off on the Victini if he chose to stay in and go for something like an Energy Ball, but luckily I do land the Hydro Pump. Going to hit the Honchkrow for about 0. That chews, so that's probably like a really bulky Honchkrow. I definitely expected it to do more damage than that. That did like 15%, so that's pretty crazy. But here he's just going to go for the safe Sucker Punch. I kind of thought that was the play he would go for. I really wanted to go for a Toxic to get a little more recovery back from my leftovers, but I figured it was in my best interest to just go ahead and go for the Volt Switch, because what this is going to do is it's going to put me in a position where I can win with Zygarde here pretty soon. I don't feel comfortable going into Zygarde on this empty switch, just because he does have the Zapdos in the back, which is packing the HP Ice. So what I need to do is I need to bait him into the Victini. So he goes into the Victini with my Cobalion out there. He's forced to go for a Fire move, and if he is indeed a Choice Lock Victini, this should absolutely be set up fodder for my Zygarde. So I'm going to sack off my Rotom Wash to the Victini, and a Sun Boosted Victory is going to come out and absolutely roast my Rotom Wash. Had no chance of surviving that. And yeah, it's definitely going to go down here. He should only have 1 turn of the Drought remaining, so this is perfect for my Zygarde to try to set up here. And yeah, so I am just going to go straight for the Dragon Dance on this turn. It's 100% my best play, no questions asked. as even if he wants to go hard into the Zapdos, he's going to take the Stealth Rock damage in addition to the poison damage, and should be in range of my 1,000 arrows unless he has some random bulk investment like he did on his Honchkrow. And that thought in my mind does come into play here with this last few plays in this game, as I'm thinking in the back of my head, okay, if his Honchkrow was that fat, he could easily be running some extra bulk on his Zapdos as well. I haven't done any direct damage to it as far as I'm aware. I don't know for a fact if it's going to be a really offensive Zapdos or if it's going to be pretty bulky just with a Life Orb. So I just go for a second Dragon Dance, risking the critical hit from his Victinia's V-Create, as I definitely lived this hit for sure without a critical hit here. And yeah, so I just take that risk, and the Victini fortunately does not land the crit. I'm going to be able to get off that second Dragon Dance with my Zygarde, and now it should be looking like a wrap, as now all that's left is this Victini, which is guaranteed outsped by a +2 Zygarde, so 1,000 arrows is going to knock this thing out, and then he's going to have a Zapdos that comes in at around 50%, which even if he is a really bulky Zapdos, this should be a guaranteed knockout on the Zapdos as well with the +2,000 arrows. So the Zapdos is going to come in. It's going to drop down to actually below 50%. It looks like it's more like 40% here at this point in the game. And now I'm going to fire off the 1,000 arrows, and the Zapdos is going to drop. In your case, the Jirachiefs are going to advance to 4-1 with a victory over Arashi and the Grunge Noctowls. So great game to my opponent. That team was crazy, and let me tell you one little secret about his team. If you haven't already seen his video, make sure to go check that out. But he talks about this in there, and this was really cool to me. This Magcargo was actually a Quick Claw set, so that could have absolutely caught me off guard. That could have burned my Cobalion, for the lack of a better term. And yeah, because he brought it in there, and I did not consider Quick Claw once. I was thinking maybe he's trying to get me to miss a Stone Edge or something like that, but no, he was Quick Claw Magcargo, and if he knocked out my Cobalion on that turn, that could change the end of the game a lot. I would have had to play it differently for sure. So yeah, really cool bring there on his part. That's just one of those items you don't really anticipate, and you know, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Fortunately for me, it never really came into play here in this game, but I could definitely see it being effective in other matchups here for sure. So once again, good game to my opponent. Make sure to check him out. Next week we have a game against Ultra Player, the coach of the New York Metagross, which is actually pretty cool to be able to have the chance to play him. I played him in the Little Cup League. Not sure if I uploaded that game. I don't think I did. It was like the last game of the Little Cup League that I played in for the APA a while back. But anyways, this is our first time playing in a more standard league, so that'll be pretty fun. Ultra Player is my bro, and yeah, it should be a good game here for sure. He's a solid player. He's using a team that he didn't draft, so he's not having the best season necessarily, but that doesn't make him any less of a threat here for sure. So looking forward to that game. I hope you guys are as well. Sorry this battle went up a little bit late again. I'm not going to go into my list of excuses, but I had some excuses for why it went up late again this week. But hopefully we'll get back on schedule for next week. So thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to answer the question of the day, which is incredibly important, incredibly serious. I'm just really curious what you guys think about where did Makar go. I need to know where Makar went, man. I need to know. Anyways, sorry for the cringe. Have a good one, guys. Later.